Welcome to YouBook channel. Read and listen to the greatest stories that mankind has ever told. From Iliad to Covid Terror, and other famous classics. Enjoy the best world literatures throughout history.
Covid Terror. Copyright 2021 by Gerry de Cadiz. All rights reserved. A unified Al-Qaeda and Islamic State took advantage of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in reinvigorating its jihadist cause for dominance and the re-establishment of a caliphate. Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Manuel de Oliveira Guterres, said, "We are in this together, and we will get through this, together."
Covid Terror. Chapter 20.
Zulfikar Resort, Los Angeles, California. May 10, 2020. The words of Van Nasir Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub have been the guiding principle of Aaron al-Hassani when he changed his character from that of Abu Musab al-Zarqa'i. Known as Saladin among Europeans, the great Islamic general founded the Ayyubid Sultanate, a sovereign state which existed in 1170 to 1260. He was the first to hold the title, custodian of the two holy mosques. At the height of his reign, Saladin's empire included Egypt, Syria, Upper Mesopotamia, the Hejaz, Yemen, and other parts of North Africa. For Aaron, the war that he will unleash starting today is just a continuation of the centuries-old conflicts between crusaders and the forces of Prophet Muhammad. During trainings and simulations, he would always inculcate to his warriors the strategic importance of the decisive Battle of Hattin in 1187. With Saladin in command of the composite Muslim armies, the Crusaders were defeated and control of Palestine, with these areas conquered 88 years ago by Christian forces, including the city of Jerusalem, passed to the de facto Caliph of Islam. Hattin became the symbol of Arab nationalism. Saladin passed into world literature as a romanticized figure, a brutal commander but a magnanimous conqueror. His wisdom reverberates to that of another thinker, Sun Tzu, who advised that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Indeed, he wished for a peaceful resolution of his demands. It's just some form of payback to him, being used as a pawn in the global war against terrorism. This is also a way of collecting the long overdue return of investments, to billions of dollars that powerful US personalities extorted from him. In Operation Zulfikar, there should never be too much bloodshed. He noted in his journal. But if it can't be avoided, the Sheikh of Slaughterers is willing to offer to Allah millions of American lives. Aaron's life became the epitome of the American dream, in the nearly 2 decades of constantly living in the United States. He understood fully well the political and social fabric of these people. Although the infidels are worthy of the punishment of Prophet Muhammad, yet, he came to love these people, not much with their culture and social life, but of their high regard to democratic principles and practices. Operation Zulfikar will commence in exactly 00 hours. Abdul Najib looked at the digital clock, counting down on the mission control monitor. The MCM, along with the TDMS, depicts a real-time streaming of satellite-based moving images of what is happening 295 miles to the east. As the timer struck 12 o'clock midnight, Khalifa Aaron al-Hassani led a duet with his commanders and fighters. Wahawalaho layla halyahua. Lahal hamdo fil ola wailakara. Wailahal hukmu wat ilahi turjaun. Falilahil hamdu rabbi samawati wearable ardi rabbil alamin. Wailahal kibrio fis samawati wailard wahawal azizul hakim. The monochromatic video clearly shows the movement of the heavily armed Special Forces unit of the Caliphate Army. All troopers were veterans of Al-Qaeda and ISIS battles, in many parts of the globe. Using silenced blank cartridges, the The regular nighttime drills within the confine of Saltwell's villa honed the combat skills of the jihadist military.
This army shall be organized along the lines of conventional military structure. The Khalifa decreed a year ago. The troop designations and deployments for Operation Zulfikar were decided during a command conference with his top commanders. Would it not more strategic if we maintain the rank and force configuration of our army? Abdul Najib quietly asked. The operations officer raised a valid issue. Of course, even language itself can confuse an enemy. At the same time, it could also maintain the closeness of the attacking force. We cannot defeat the enemy using our old system, the one that is applicable only in our land. Here, it would be a mismatch to a regular army. He was a tactician in the old days of AQI, and knows the weakness of his fighters. Aaron has been a believer of the art of war. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. The radical change of tactics, techniques, and procedures was a product of his long casual talks with a golf buddy, the late U.S. Army General Frederick Clark. In the Middle East, each province was manned by a Al-Qaeda ISIS unit, organized into branches such as the infantry, snipers, air defense, special forces, artillery forces, and the army of adversity, the last being a militia force which usually served as base personnel, couriers, messengers and spies. The Caliphate Army in the U.S. comprises of elite and highly trained multinational troopers, whose motivation is to advance the cause of jihad.
The metrics-driven military command of Operation Zulfikar ensured that the Khalifa has a unified, coherent leadership structure that commands from the leader down to individual elements in the fire team, with all activities being driven towards a deadline and objectives preset, rather than organically. How long will it take for authorities to notice of this attack? Aaron asked his operations officer, as he kept pacing the floor like a caged tiger. His feeling is that of an entrepreneur, preparing to have a business pitch to Fortune 100's, who's who in investments. The attack was planned for utmost shock and disruption against the defenders, with all forms of external communication being the priority targets. Abdul Najib was confident. He could picture in his mind every aspect of this operation. The World War II German blitzkrieg will be adapted as a method of warfare, wherein the Caliphate army spearheads an offense using a rapid overwhelming force concentration. From 0 hour to white base, 1 minute is more than enough to accomplish the initial mission. Shallow water will take about an hour, for our brothers to set up everything. The planning and precise recitation of the various operational stages of Task Force Lake Mead is militarily commendable. Allah forbid it. But we are hoping that no security personnel can activate the alarm, and be able to signal for help from the nearest National Guard unit, or worst, from any of the military bases in Nevada. Ayman Kalimov did not apply electronic jamming, as it will just arouse the curiosity of authorities in the area, to investigate what's going on. He advised Aaron that it would take only 7 minutes, or the Bell A-1Z Viper attack chopper of the U.S. Marine Corps from Nellis Air Force Base, to reach the vicinity and do its dirty work. Order all units to stick with the operational plan. A premature discovery by the U.S. military of this offensive is the most undesirable event to happen. Aaron motioned to the images of all highlighted Caliphate units in the mission control monitor. Although such eventuality had been anticipated by Aaron and the Shura Council, and if ever it happened, Plan B of Operation Zulfikar will be executed. An enhanced video streaming shows in colored graphics the preparation of all assigned units to launch the attack. These are the best Al-Qaeda ISIS units that the Khalifa can muster from the Western Hemisphere. After this operation, they will just go back to their respective homes, and blend in with the populace as ordinary and law-abiding citizens of the country. The anticipation for battle is evident in every mujahid. All of them are ready to fight for Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and very much willing to meet martyrdom for Allah, glorified is he. The scaling and rappelling techniques were honed, with constant practice in the Arizona desert, disguised as outdoor games of a duly registered mountaineers group. In the last few months, it can be noticed that gun clubs and firing ranges recorded a sudden increase in membership, and a surge of income from well-paying gamers from Nevada. There were occasions that U.S. Navy flyboys in the nearby Naval Air Station Fallon would have a friendly war game with some gun enthusiasts from Saltwell's Villa. Mimicking the SEALs TV series engagements, the terrorist teams were surprisingly marksman, and tactically well trained. The first to kill an enemy will have the honor to append to his name the title, Al-Baghuz, and the first platoon to accomplish its mission will be awarded with $100,000 to be shared among themselves. Aaron decreed in his harangue via Minsat's phone patch, before deployment of his warriors. It boosted the jihadists' morale, making the title a tribute to the territorial last stand of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant in eastern Syria, that was part of the Deir-ez-Zor campaign of the Syrian civil war in 2019. Cadiz Tariq at 2 o'clock, 2 clicks downwind. The spotter adjusted the range in his telescopic sight, as he reported to his partner the target profile. This ISIS sniper team and those deployed in other areas utilize U.S. equipment, tactics, and lingo. They were remnants of the elite and powerful counter-terrorism service, commonly called Golden Division, the post-2003 invasion special forces trained by coalition armies, who sided later on with the ISIS, in the Iraq civil war that followed. Roger that. It seems like the bastards just done with a late-night striptease party in Las Vegas. Abu Ayman al-Iraqi adjusted the rangefinder of the Barrett M82. He always trusted the technical assessment of his spotter, who is efficient in measuring the different elements that affect the shot, wind speed, distance, and other factors. A former muqaddam in the Iraqi Republican Guard of Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist regime, al-Iraqi operated also the country's air defense intelligence, making it easy to spread a story that he had been killed in an enemy airstrike in November 20, 14. On my mark, he radioed his team leaders. The designated commander of Task Force Hoover Dam knew fully well when to commence the attack. The first salvo of Operation Zulfikar was unleashed by the Al-Qaeda ISIS commander of the Long-Range Reconnaissance Unit, against a sluggish guard of a security checkpoint along Interstate 11 of Clark County, on the Nevada shore of the Colorado River. No telltale sign, a spark, or smoke, can be seen of the M82's successive fires. Primarily intended as an anti-materiel weapon, it was proven for its ability to penetrate brick and concrete. One of its known feat was penetrating the armor of a Soviet T-72 main battle tank of the Syrian army, during the early phase of the Iraqi insurgency. By logic, its kill effectiveness against personnel is beyond question. Having an effective range of 1,800 meters, under a muzzle velocity of 853 meters per second for .50 BMG centerfire cartridges, it was reported that this rifle can destroy sensitive enemy materiel such as radar equipment, trucks, and parked aircraft, as well as for the remote destruction of explosives. The crashing of building materials and shrieks of pain became the signal for other in-placed fighters to commence firing at their designated targets. After a minute, the entire Hoover Dam complex became silent again. All security personnel of the Bureau of Reclamation, who were stationed outdoors, were felled by the incessant and very accurate sniping. Execute White Base. Commander al-Iraqi directed his troops to proceed with the second phase of this mission. Black-cladded mujahideen surged with precision to their assigned areas. The remaining personnel, who stayed overnight at the different facilities of the dam, were no match to the hyper-energized and overly motivated warriors. The Task Force Hoover Dam is a company-size military formation that comprises of 2 platoons, Samara and Nineveh. The first 45-strong unit will take care of capturing the Cableway Tower, Monument Plaza, original exhibit building, the Spillway House and the Visitor Center. They need to hold on also to the Nevada Powerhouse and its Valve House. The Nineveh platoon is in charge of taking over the facilities at the Arizona side of the dam, including the Arizona spillway, the powerhouse, and valve house. The first squad of this platoon was tasked to secure the 4 intake towers, while the second and third will take charge of perimeter defense. White base was meant not only to take over defensible structures and collateral units, but also to neutralize any aggressive opposition coming from any of the facilities. Go, go, go. Arakib pushed his troops to go faster, as they rappel on the downstream slope of the dam. His squad was tasked to ensure that one of the powerhouses will be booby-trapped, and ready to be blown when it becomes necessary. He can see through his night vision goggles that the other squad was converging on the powerhouse, at the western bank of the Colorado River. The white van stopped at the security checkpoint, leading towards the Hoover Dam access road. Amira was not surprised, seeing 3 bodies slumped in impossible angles, with a pool of blood forming on the floor. Poor members of the Hoover Dam Security Response Force, on night duty. Kala, yours will be the last car to pass through this road. An Arab saluted, and motioned for her to get through a camouflage barrier, rigged with IEDs that they were setting up at the intersection. She is getting used with her nom de guerre, a reference to the famed Arab female warrior, and a military leader in the time of the Prophet Muhammad. Yusuf accelerated through the access road, and parked right in front of the Monument Plaza. The place is awash with an extremely bright light from the posts. A body lay prone beside the left-winged figures of the Republic, the iconic sculptures of 30 feet high statuary bronze figure, sitting on a base of black diorite. Another body lay dead near the 142-foot flagpole. Obviously, National Park Service rangers, who unfortunately passed, and seen on the crosshairs of a Mujahid sniper. Help us with this thing. Amira alighted from the vehicle, and commanded a group of fighters to unload the cargoes. The pre-dawn desert cold is intolerable to Middle Eastern physique, so a lot of the warriors keep on moving, to produce heat in their bodies. The van opened its side door to allow the transfer of several boxes, and placed them at the Monument Plaza's terrazzo floor, a marble celestial map that marks the time of the dam's creation, based on the 25,772-year axial precession of the Earth. As a biologic toxin, ricin can be carried safely, if placed inside a sturdy fiberplastic container. Several yellow cylindrical plastics were brought out from the boxes, each marked with the U+2623 biohazard symbol. Quad towers to Kala. Her handheld radio suddenly squawked a broadcast. Go ahead, Quad towers. She demanded from the one in charge of the intake towers in the lake. Kala, tower is green, I repeat, tower is green. Amira smiled inwardly. Every tower protruding at 395 feet from the bottom controls 1/4 water supply for the power plant turbines of the dam. The team leader just signified that the 4 reinforced concrete structures has been cleared of opposition, and ready to be utilized in this operation. Don't touch the brown boxes. That's for another location. She instructed those unloading the packages. A more sinister thought crossed her mind. The fighters put their attention, in pairing the blasting caps to each ricin cylinder. The weapon's mechanism is very simple. It resembles to a typical dextrose, that is filled with a colorless liquid. It was designed this way by the technicians at SWV Laboratory, for purposes of misleading anyone who will inspect the van's cargo while in transit, especially at security checkpoints. The blasting cap looks like a Pasteur pipette. The waterproof bulb is a transponder that can receive a radio signal, and automatically transmit a different signal, to activate an internal mechanism. The glass tube contains a powder mixture of very combustible chemicals like sulfur, charcoal, and potassium nitrate, that will readily explode when triggered by electronic signals, shattering the toxin's container. Sayadatai, where are the detonators for these bombs? An explosive expert inspecting the ricin containers verified. We don't have the firing device. Just make sure that the electronic blasting caps are secured tightly to each cylinder. The final handiwork looks like an oversized milk bottle. All bioweapons in Operation Zulfikar will be activated remotely via satellite. The Khalifa reserved the right to decide when to unleash the horrendous effect of what Amira formulated, in exchange for $150 million. When Hot Ice came into full consciousness, her sense of bearing is lost. She cannot move, as her hands were restrained from behind. Her surroundings are in total darkness. She tried to accustom her vision to the dark. After a while, she was able to figure out that she's still in her apartment room. The attacker moved with swiftness, hitting her head with something hard. The last thing she remembered was buckling in her legs, with the phone dropping to the floor. And the smell, which is very familiar. The sadistic rapist. She cursed him silently. It's her boss. He may have picked her door lock, and silently came in. After a very difficult arrangement with the CIA Directorate, she gave in to his sexual advances. The plan was part of making her close to one of the most influential industrial mogul in the country. But the priority mission is to know his real personality. The CIA suspected the CEO to be somebody else. Her employment became a silent grieve in hell, every time he forced her to bed with him. By now, he may have known already her true affiliation. In browsing through the most recent call log on the phone, or taking the active call with Sage before the attack happened, the perpetrator will be able to identify also the CIA agent. If you are bound at your back, find a corner to rub the tape up and down against, until it begins to tear. These words of her instructor at the farm might help. She stood up and found a light switch. She went over to the wash basin and manipulated the tap. Her hands got wet, and the duct tape started to lose its adhesive quality. Rubbing vigorously the tape at a table's edge, it finally gave way and she was freed. She removed the tape gag in her mouth, and gulped a lungful of fresh air. Locating a backup phone hidden under her wastebasket, she dialed 153. As expected, no one will answer this call. After the second ring, she cut the dial. In a 24/7 dashboard at Langley, the night shift operator saw a flashing signal on his monitor with the code, Hot Ice, a picture of a middle-aged lady, and the GPS coordinates of the sender. Identify, and state if you need medical assistance. The staff called back for Hot Ice to authenticate herself, and provide information if she's been physically compromised, or in immediate mortal danger. Immediate extraction is required, but no medical attention is necessary, came her immediate answer. She thought that what she learned about her boss needs to be acted upon. But her gut feeling tells her not to trust anyone, knowing that the person involved is very powerful and influential. There's one person who has the mind and ability to help her, Sage. The company has a dedicated unit called Dreamwalkers. Operating under the Special Operations Group, each agent or team nearest to the distress call is primarily tasked to do rescue operations of fellow agents, anywhere they are in the world. Two pre-dawn joggers near Staples Center got a multimedia message through the CIA app in their phones, pointing a location for an emergency rescue at the Circa LA apartments. Fully armed and primed for combat, the two agents proceeded to their mission of taking Hot Ice out of danger. At midnight, a sudden movement can be discerned from the overhanging vines. The undergrowth came alive, with stealthy figures getting into position near the perimeter fence protecting the various installations of Alfred Merritt Smith Water Treatment Facility. Secure blue targets. Abu Muslim al-Turkmani commands his Babylon platoon to proceed with its objectives. The first squad leader, a veteran Mulazim Awal of the Iraqi Special Republican Guard, acknowledged to undertake this arduous mission. Sniping was the preferred method of eliminating any offensive unit in an outdoor setting. When indoors, a mujahid resorts to silenced pistols, blades, or martial arts, to minimize noise in neutralizing the enemy even before they knew what hit them. The few night-shift armed guards of the water treatment facilities were no match to battle-hardened warriors of the Caliphate army. Blue Poseidon is another phase of Operation Zulfikar, through Task Force Lake Mead commanded by Al-Turkmani. It targets all water treatment facilities within the lake, that provides potable water to the states of California, Nevada, and Arizona. Aaron rationalized the importance of these targets to his commanders, saying that, anyone can survive a month without food, but not in 3 days without water. The Blue Mission objective refers to the water supply system of the Alfred Merritt Smith Water Treatment Facility, that needs to be secured for at least 2 days, with booby traps and live troops, against enemy intervention. The water treatment plant is a priority target assigned by the Khalifa. The Mujahideen of the 2nd Squad proceeded to the River Mountains Water Treatment Facility, with a similar mission of securing the plant for Operation Zulfikar. Along with the AMS Water Treatment Facility, this plant has a special purpose, that is, to serve later on as a sampling area, if the US authorities would think that the Khalifa is just bluffing. The rest of the water treatment facilities around Lake Mead will be taken over by squads of elite fighters from the defunct Golden Division of Iraq. These units have a common mission, to assist Kala in installing a special weapon to each plant, and subsequently defending it within the duration of this operation. 2 loaded motorboats silently cruised Lake Mead. This is the first time that at 1 o'clock in the morning, Amira felt so alive. She could not even feel the cold breeze of the lake. Another boat on the starboard is just ahead of her. Yusuf and a group of expert divers carry the other half of the ricin cargoes. 15 minutes was needed to set up the prepared ricin containers. Specialist divers took an exact number of the weapons to the deepest part of the 4 intake towers. When it was assured that a satellite signal can be received underwater, the Al-Qaeda ISIS warriors put into place a considerable amount of booby traps and decoys to protect the planted ricin bombs against pilferage of intruders. How could this baby drinks be so harmful? A young jihadist diver asked her earlier, as she was allocating the weapon to each of the tower. Each bottle of this drink, as you say, contains a concentrated ricin solution, that can contaminate at least 24 million gallons of water. Amira patiently explained to the curious warrior. In the next target, they will be needing 25 of the ricin cylinders, to treat the 600 million gallons capacity of the AMS water treatment facility, for its daily allocation of drinking water to the states of Nevada. Commander Al-Turkmani of Task Force Lake Mead met Amira and her contingent at the quay near the water treatment facility. I labeled those cylinders intended for this plant. She pointed to a cluster of ricin containers with ready blasting caps. Right? Could these be positioned in any manner? He asked, knowing that this weapon has to be activated remotely. You can place it anywhere, but preferably at the deepest part of the tank. And make sure that each of this weapon can receive the electronic triggering command. To test, open a mobile phone underwater next to the device, and see if it got a telecommunication signal. The Al-Qaeda ISIS commander, Amira, and other fighters took a short drive to the treatment plant. When they arrive, no time was wasted as the 4 divers immediately went into action, of hiding in the deepest part of the gigantic water storage tanks, the allocated number of ricin cylinders. If the explosion occurs, it would be easy for the toxic solution to mix with the clean water. Amira had proven through experiments that the ricin contaminants could not be affected by reverse osmosis system or other filter systems being employed in the drinking water purification process. I'm honored to be part of this project of the Khalifa. He deeply bowed to the Kala. This is the first time he saw in person the well-known scientist Dr. Amira Siddiqui. After 10 minutes, the group were done with their task, and came back to the boats for the next stop, while a squad from Task Force Lake Mead got busy installing booby traps and barriers, to mislead or prevent anyone from tampering the underwater weapons. Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. The agent called hot ice, nursed a mug of brewed coffee, and hungrily munched a hamburger in a CIA safe house in downtown Los Angeles. Her head still ached from the blow she got from the attacker in her apartment. The Dreamwalkers escorted her to this hideout, where she was given some hot food and weapons. The fucking bastard modeled himself after these words of George Bernard Shaw. She thought, and was half amused, with the way the Khalifa had indeed created himself in the United States, and finding his old identity in the process. You were cut off halfway in our conversation. I can guess what happened. Sage answered right away when she called him. He learned about it from the rescuers. I was about to tell you, that it's Aaron al-Hassani, who is the real Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. She cursed the man she considered as her boss in the last 5 years. Right after he attacked you, I was threatened through the phone. He seems to know that I'm a company man. Does he know my connection to the Clark murder? Definitely, Aaron got wind of your investigations. He has some agents in Langley in his payroll. It's not surprising. Some guys always wanted to have extra cash for their lavish vacations. Sage lamented of the unscrupulous practices of double agents. The company's director general deployed a while ago some agents to his resort. While waiting for an update on what happened to her, he got wizened after piecing the evidences together. He used millions of dollars from the illegal operations of his group in the early 2000s and during the Iraqi insurgency. She was able to trace the sources of his wealth. Because of their personal relationship, Hot Ice came across some questionable documents of al-Hassani, which shows the transition of growth of his business empire, starting with a retail enterprise in New Zealand, to mergers and/or acquisitions of Wall Street big names, in the last decade. The Sheikh of the Slaughterer successfully hid his identity, by facelifting and skin scrubbing, using an actor to proclaim to coalition forces, that its public enemy number one met his end with the GBUs in Hib in 2006. The AQI, Khalifa, Harba, AI, that General Friedrich Clark texted to his own phone, was about Al-Qaeda in Iraq, the Khalifa its leader, Harba, or disguise of identity, and Al-Hassani Industries. Sage was correct in his initial hunch, but refrained from accosting the suspect. The AI President CEO is a well-known contributor of the current administration. A lot of publications portrayed him brushing elbows with powerful people in politics, business, and even from the military. So, are you sure that the murderer is the AQI leader? Hot Ice wanted to be ascertained. She had suffered also, albeit mentally, from the unwanted advances of Aaron. It may not be him, personally, but somebody of proper and deadly skills, had been contracted to do the wet job. She became silent for a while, knowing that her allegation may be unfounded. It could be the same contracted team of mercenaries, that he called to take a roadside attempt at you in Beverly Hills, which I happened to foil. I've known those too. They are killers under the patronage of Dr. Amira Siddiq Tui, the one who stole the coronavirus in Wuhan, and the cause of your COVID-19 disease. After a digital forensic by the CIA Cyber Laboratory, the general's phone revealed also a call to al-Hassani, and their brief meet-up at the Golden Horseshoe Golf Club in Virginia, on that day he was murdered. A team of FBI agents were alerted to follow up this theory. You know, it would not sit well with the Sun. Colonel Clark has been quoted one time by a national publication, that whoever murdered his dad, would have a hell to pay. I will call him first thing tomorrow, and tell him everything. Sage was able to get a dossier of al-Hassani, from the CIA database. She made a revelation. I was the one, who sent that scribbled note in a black envelope to the general. What was the second message, that had cost the life of General Clark? His personal inquiry into this angle was a dead end. It's the complete dossier of the AQI leader. The one at the CIA database is incomplete. It does not show how he became Aaron al-Hassani in the first place. How can you be sure? He tested her. As one who coordinates Project Yan by Ya, I planted that information as a firewall against any curious agent in the company. The second copy also contains the AQI, Khalifa, Harba, AI message, along with the pictures of Abu Musab al-Zarqawi juxtaposed with an ID picture, the first time he registered a business in Auckland, as well as the recent passport image of the AI executive, Aaron al-Hassani. A timeline was shown, starting with his CIA recruitment to fight against the Taliban's, to his imprisonment in Jordan, the first engagement with Osama bin Laden, participation against the US invasion of Afghanistan, the poison laboratory and terrorist training camps, and the AQI leadership in the late 1990s, spearheading several acts of terrorism in the Middle East. He cannot deny the connection of his old brutish self to the benign gentleman that he is today. With our agents in Bangkok, I got a scanned copy of the receipt from a small clinic in the Thai hinterlands, showing how much he paid, and the exact date the medical procedures were conducted. The clinic manager was kind enough to send also additional images of their very generous client, from a tattooed and brusque tribesman to a fair and princely Arab. Unknown to al-Zarqawi, he was made a poster boy by the new owner of the remote clinic in Thailand, where he transformed himself physically, like a Harba. But you reacquired him in 2014, and you have a full knowledge of what he's doing since then, including his true personality as an Al-Qaeda ISIS leader. If only she did not save him and Gwen from an assassin's bullets, he would easily accuse her of being an accomplice to terrorism. It's not that simple as running to the White House and telling the president that a jihadist leader has been dining with him. He saw its logic. Her statement means that the al-Zarqawi character is deeply entrenched in the political fabric in Washington, D.C. We have to wait for him to expose himself and manifest his plan in America. Hot Ice crafted a plan that would put to an end the Khalifa's menace. Sage got worried. Does it mean that there has to be a Shahida black flag flying over the Washington Monument, and the Khalifa in the Oval Office, shouting at the top of his voice, Allahu Akbar? Something like that. Hot Ice almost smiled to herself, while pouring from a thermos another mug of hot coffee, feeling comfortable and safe, in the confined room of the CIA safe house. In January 2019, the UN Procurement Division posted a request for expression of interest, from all concerned companies, for the establishment of a long-term agreement in the provision of water treatment supply, air conditioning, and maintenance services at United Nations headquarters in New York City, and in nearby UN-owned properties. Ma'an Mahala Corporation, a Middle East-based service utility company, subsequently got the multi-million-dollar contract for 5 years. A very favorable provision in the contract is the liberty of its personnel to conduct maintenance works, or quality assurance audit anytime. The guard at the main entrance to the underground floors of the UN Secretariat building halted a MMC service vehicle. Although he knows the driver personally, but the UN police made a strict instruction to follow security protocols. Just speak in Arabic, if he asks you for anything. Our passes show that you're the quality assurance auditor, the driver instructed his passenger. That I will do, Fatih Hamejadi smiled through the face mask. Qasim, what do you have in this unholy hour? The guard has a jovial face for a stern voice. Somebody wants to make sure that I did the right thing in giving fresh air to all the buildings in this complex. He motioned to the passenger. Qasim Abbas was a senior employee of the MMC, who supervised the maintenance of refrigeration systems, of the various buildings and facilities of the UN headquarters. Could it not be done in broad daylight? Of course, there's no issue of letting these people go on with their job. In fact, most maintenance works were done at night, to minimize the distractions it usually gave to office workers. That can't be done. A United Airlines for Riyadh is waiting for her this morning. Qasim explained, throwing his hands in apology. Well then, go ahead. Hey Omar, Don't mess up with some guys refilling the petrol station. The guard point his stick to the man sitting inside the cargo hold of the van. I'll behave this time, Abu Muhammad al-Shimali chuckled. He was reprimanded last week by the UN police for getting into a heated argument with a Somali, who delivered him a cold burger. The vehicle continued to the machine room that houses the air conditioning system of the entire complex. The 154 meters tall skyscraper is a centerpiece of the UN headquarters in the Turtle Bay East Midtown neighborhood of Manhattan. Inaugurated in 1948, the edifice lacked the usual security features in the 21st century, such as a CCTV network in the basement area. The building renovation started 10 years ago, but until now, much of its utility areas in the 3 underground floors are still in their dilapidated state. Only the hybrid chiller plant had seen an upgrade with the services of MMC, courtesy of an unending complaints from the occupants above. After they closed the door of the machine room, al-Shimali took charge of the operation. Bring the weapons inside. He ordered Qasim to get the 6 cylindrical containers of the ricin solution. Hala Sayyidai. The subordinate readily complied. It took only 10 minutes for al-Shimali and Fatiha to finish attaching the blasting cap of each bioweapon. The HCP is a centralized system that cools the air for the various rooms and offices within the UN headquarters complex. It provides also the thermal comfort for the building's occupants, accompanied with indoor air quality of other heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Qasim removed the bolts of the giant air-cooled condensers and placed inside 2 ricin cylinders, making sure that the digital blast cap is active, and it can receive a telecommunication signal. When this weapon explodes, its contents must bind with the chillers. Al-Shimali explained the process to the 2 fighters. The heat is taken from the fluid being chilled, and transferred to the ambient air, initiating the refrigeration cycle through the compressor. Place the other weapons in the compressor apparatus. After 2 minutes of adjustments, Qasim signaled that it's done. The compressor takes low pressure, low temperature refrigerant in gas form, and compresses it into a high pressure high temperature gas. Any element within its tube will be released as a gas. The ricin infused fumes will be blown through the utility air vents, to the 40,000 employees, plus other thousands of visitors in the United Nations headquarters complex. The jihadist group drove back, and exited at the southern portion of the complex, passing through 1st Avenue, and eastward on 38th Street to the FDR Drive. The guard entered in his logbook a note by Qasim posted at the machine room: "Do not enter. HCP under maintenance but serviceable. We have accomplished with the requirements of the silent breath phase of Operation Zulfikar." Al-Shimali pumped his chest in celebration of their feat. If successful, this action is expected to be considered as the most brutal poison attack in the history of 21st century, akin to the German Holocaust during World War II.
Thank you for watching. Write in the comments section for your request as to what book, usually from Project Gutenberg, you want us to feature in U-Book channel.
Click like to boost the rating of U-Book channel, make a comment for us for the improvement of our services, and share this video to your friends, with the copyright intact. Please click subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified of new uploads from U-Book channel.